Hi everyone, Linda Heldman here for Canadian Beats. I am very pleased to have on the phone with me today Jeff Dalziel. Am I pronouncing that right, Jeff?
Yes, you are.
Awesome, awesome. Jeff is a CMA Ontario Producer of the Year nominee for this year's CMA Ontario Awards happening on June the 3rd. So thank you for talking with me, Jeff. I appreciate it.
No,
Um,
I appreciate it. Thank you.
I think my first question is, what is the role of a producer?
Well, there's quite a few answers to that question, depending on who you're speaking to and what they're hoping for.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the nitty gritty of it. Historically, producers were there to produce a product, and of course, a product that is going to be competitive in whatever market you're going for. But early on in my career, I was a lot of the times, most of the time, and people prior to me, even bigger producers, they had a say in what music is going to get produced to begin with, and that has, not to get into too deep about that, but fortunately, I still am involved often in picking of what we're going to be producing.
Mm-hmm.
But we live in a world now where it's the producer term is a bit blurred, and sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. It's like sometimes I'm just writing a book actually, and there's a part of it that I'm just writing about this actually is that the definition of producer is definitely blurred, and sometimes I'm the kind of person that will discuss it with, whether it's the label or the artist or managers that, here's what a producer is. And if this is not what you're looking for, then you're looking for an engineer. And because people want to be hands-on and produce their own product and pick everything and demand it. And I'm like, well, that's not really what a real producer is. What you're asking for is somebody to just document your idea. In a perfect world for a producer, we would have definitely a say in what song we're producing and how it's actually produced in terms of what instrumentation, and that leads into a whole other discussion. But is literally at the end of the day, my credit doesn't come with an asterisk. It doesn't say, I wanted to do this, but so and so made me do this. And if I'm not the ringleader, then at the end of the day, people kind of forget the process, and ultimately the producer gets the blame for the success of it or not. So the more control a producer with talent has, the better the product could definitely end up, especially with experience. Literally, my job is to produce a product, and the most successful things I've had out in the market in several genres are always the ones where I have the least resistance, where I can really help the artist find who they are as an artist and a brand, and put their best foot forward. And sometimes in my career, I've had a lot of blockage, I guess you would call it, or people doing my job for me. And fortunately, I've kind of been able to rise above that and continue to be a kind of producer that's involved from the ground up, rather than just, here's a song, can you make it sound like it's on the radio?
Mm-hmm.
But don't make it sound like this, make it sound like this. So literally, my job is, I always kind of try to make the artists like family, and I'm listening to their ideas and what they've grown up loving, and trying to help them be as unique as possible, but still be relevant to whatever chart they want to be in, whether it's rock or pop or country.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that taking the time to do that and knowing what makes that artist, if it's a country artist, they didn't just grow up listening to country. They have lots of influences. How can we draw that in and make it part of your sound? Because that leads to more honesty, I think. Mm-hmm. That's kind of how I approach making music, literally. So it's a very long answer, but
it's a loaded question. It's definitely a loaded question. You have worked with some amazing people, both in and outside of the Canadian country music industry, with people who are members of the CMA Ontario organization. There's Andrew Hyatt, there was Autumn Hill, Rivertown Saints.
Right.
I believe I was told you also recently worked with Jessica Mitchell.
Yeah, I actually co-wrote a song and produced one of her songs on the new record. Yeah, I
Awesome.
love Jess.
Awesome.
She's awesome.
Well, these are all great people that
Yeah.
I've mentioned, and those others who aren't from Ontario, there's the Washboard Union and Dan Davidson and Nice Horse, Brett
Yeah.
Kissel, just so many. And then you were highly involved with a lot of the Canadian Idol artists.
I was. Yes, I was.
And
thanks for bringing that up.
those
Yeah,
were
that was
great
a good time.
days.
We had so much fun making those, and honestly, even then, still the same process. Like, Rex and Melissa were some good. We had some fun times making their songs, and I really, again, I still approached it like it was an idol thing, but really like, who are you and what do you love? And Bryan Melos' record was the same. We
Mhm.
it was heavily influenced by a lot of the stuff that he loved, but still kept it, to fit in the marketplace that that it was expected to be in. So we had a great time making those records.
Mhm.
Fantastic. And I'll tell you, not many people know this, but man, that the winners that I got to work with, I didn't work with all of them, but the ones I did get to work with and had first or second singles with were some of the best singers I've ever recorded. So as much as the show was the show, somehow it whittled down to the right winner usually. So that was, just to be honest, I'll tell you a little secret. There you
go. There you go. A couple of years ago, I was speaking with Luke McMaster, and Luke had a lot to do with the songwriting for.
Yeah, Luke and I have done a lot of work writing behind the scenes for that kind of stuff, for sure.
He's a fantastic songwriter and artist, and
he's just so handsome.
Well,
he's such a handsome fellow.
He is.
Luke, if you're listening, you're a handsome fellow.
And you're not saying you're a handsome fellow?
No.
It's all perspective.
Right, exactly. Anyway,
so is there one artist that stands out to you that you've worked with that the process has gone incredibly well?
To be honest, and not to sound ridiculous when I say this, but I'd say a large majority of the artists I've worked with are still friends. Like, they'll come here and just come by and have coffee and stay in one of the guest rooms and have wine, and just because they know that for the most part I've always had positive experience. I really can't say I've had anything to add. I literally speak to, I'd even say 90% of my artists that I've had in the past, even if I'm not still working with them or if they're not making music, they're still welcomed here and they know that. And Edwin will show up and still call me, text me at 2 a.m. You up? Want to go for coffee? And the last record I produced him was like 10 years ago, I think. So it's every experience has been positive, and maybe I've just been lucky. I can't really say that I've had anything bad. I don't really have one that sticks out. I mean, in the thick of making music, artists even know that I'm so focused on that particular task at the time that they know that I'm giving them 100% of me. And I think that's, over time, regardless of how well the product does or doesn't do, they know at least I was one of the people that was 100% on their side. So I think that it doesn't really feel like work. And so, we're usually in my studio in our pajamas making music and laughing and then watch a movie. And it's not about, I don't treat it like it's a job. I treat it like it's part of my life. And then when they come here, they're part of my life. So I think there's not really one thing that stands out. I think every artist I've luckily been able to work with was super talented, and I've just like to be in a room with people that are just as talented or more talented than me, and it's always been a nice thing. So I've been asked that question before, and I don't really have a solid answer because I don't really know. I mean, there's been some records that were just ridiculously fun, like the Prozzak first Prozzak record I did, which did amazing. My stomach hurt for 3 weeks straight. We couldn't stop laughing every day. And there's highlights like that, but a lot of the records are like that. So the jokes and the YouTube videos, and it's more of a, it's very, every artist, regardless of genre, the process is very common. And maybe that's because of me, or it's just because musicians think the same way, regardless of genre. But I wish I could tell you that this is the best thing I've ever done. And I would do every project I've done, I would do it again. Put it that way. Good.
They've come at the right time, the right people at the right time, and you've made magic, which is what it's all about.
Yeah. Exactly.
So how do you decide who you want to work with and who maybe isn't that right fit for you?
Okay, well, that's a good question. We live in Canada and I work in Canada, so it's not like I decide who to work with. There are situations which I'll talk about, but for the most part, people are calling me to help with a project. When I get hired, from Warner or Sony or whoever, to work on Artist X, the new singles or fix or remix or whatever the case. I can certainly say yes or no to things if I don't like it, which I have. I've said, I'm not the right guy. I try to be honest about that too. So somebody will, would you do this? I'm like, it's not really my thing. I don't know if but I know somebody that might be better suited. And so sometimes I actually give up work to my competition, or at least suggest it. Mm-hmm. But then there is the side of me that, because of where I am in my career, I can spend some time and develop projects. And so I'm not sure if you know this, but I was an in-house producer at Sony for years. And part of my job there was to develop artists that, eventually you would have heard or people heard. And that, is missing. And so in our industry now, it's really like they're signed artists. We go to radio, we try to go to radio. But the whole development process, sometimes we'd spend years with artists at Sony before anybody knew who they were. And so I've kind of tried to do that a little bit in my world. Every time I'm doing something that for a major or a major indie, there's a budget there, I do try to extend my talents to people that I think are special. And it's not about the money at first. It's more about developing them, trying to find who they are as an artist. And Dan Davidson is a perfect example. Dan and I've known Dan for 15 years, and we did the rock stuff together early on, and then when he switched over to country, we really took our time with it to develop and work it up. So it's not that would be definitely where I'm choosing to work with something, but it's not like I'm making a phone call going, I'd like to work on this. It's usually like I get the phone call and I decide whether I want to do it, or if the budget's there, and I think it's talented enough, then I can certainly get in there to help it. But I'll never jump on something for the money. I want to love the artist. And so to answer another part of that question, I go on field. And that sounds so weird. Take an artist like Jessica Mitchell. I've been in a room with Jess where she just plays the acoustic and sings, and my arm hair goes up. Mm-hmm. I can't, for me, it's like, any music company, if they understood it, if you could find a star, and then you have a hit song, either with that artist or outside song that's a hit, or something that sounds like it's a hit, and you put them together, it kind of does a lot of the heavy lifting. And so, but to even people I've worked with that are really good A&R people that could recognize a star, to get them to define what that is, they can't. It's just a thing. And so when I hear something, it's like, and my arm hair goes up and go, yeah, I really want to work on that. And it's like, I'm not even thinking about money. I'm not thinking about anything other than I want to be part of that. There's something that, speaks to me. And I love the fact that, A&R that I'm dealing with currently in Canada, they do have their finger on that pulse, and they do recognize something that's special. And we still, if I ask them to define it, I don't know if they could. But there's just something about it when you hear it, you just, in its rawest form, you go, that's awesome. And that's what I always hope to be working with. Mm-hmm. And if I'm not feeling that, regardless of the budget, I will rather work with something that's making my arm hair stand up. That is doesn't have the money. Because I'm in this to make great music. It's not about, it is my livelihood, but I don't want to work with things that are not ready. And so if I can see a little twinkle of that, and maybe one arm hair goes up, then there's something to work with there. I'm going to try to just bring it to where all my arm hair stands up, and then we go from there.
So it comes down to that it factor.
Yeah, I mean, it's a term that even non-music people know. That it factor.
Mm-hmm.
That person's the star, but how do you define that? It's different for everybody.
Yes. Yes.
And it's just that thing that happens. It doesn't have to necessarily. It's not about looks. It's not about. Sometimes it's not even about a voice. Like some of the worst singers are stars because there's just something. Not worst singers, but take a guy like Bono, who's phenomenal, but everything is out of tune. But it's out of tune. It just feels right, and it's just perfect. And there's something about it.
Mm-hmm.
What it is, I do not know. It just is. It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And we have, fortunately, we have a lot of that in Canada. A lot of it gets passed over, which is sad, but there's talented people out there. Let me tell you. And I wish I could produce them all. It'd be fun, but it wouldn't give me sleep.
Well, talking to you previously, you don't get much sleep as it is.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
Even on your website, it says open 24 hours.
I know, right? That was kind of a joke, and I forgot to change it.
I love it. I love it. What is the best way to contact you if an artist or a band is interested in seeking your help?
On my website, I mean, if you go there, all my contact is there. Email and all my socials, there's all links to that. I've had this conversation with lots of producers that have a good success. One of the parts that we forget, that can also sometimes create a situation where our artists out there, they think we're out of their league or they can't contact us, and that's just not true. I get emails from lots of different people, and of course, if I don't think they're ready, I'm being honest, and I will tell them and at least try to give them just some sort of suggestion to what they can be working on or what's missing in my point of view, and try to be inspired. I'm always looking for talented people, and not just for me to develop like I do with Dan, but I also have connections with every label. So if I hear something special, it's like I have no problem passing it off, knowing that I may or may not ever produce that. So as long as it's it's as flaky as it sounds, I think there's so much talent in Canada that let's get it out there, and if I can be instrumental in taking an artist from somewhere Saskatoon, and it's amazing, and I pass it off to somebody and they go, wow, this is genius, and they do a deal with them or they work something out and they're out there, then I feel good about that. Even if I'm not involved, then I'm at least helping our industry.
Mm-hmm. That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff, I wish you all the best in your nomination for the CMA Ontario Award.
Thank you.
You will be there. I will be there. I hope we can get together and celebrate.
Oh yeah, we'll be rushing around, doing our things. We'll be there for sure. You got a lot of interviews, I would imagine. So
yes, it's another opportunity to not sleep.
All right, good. All right, perfect.
Sleep's overrated.
Sleep. Who needs it? Whatever. Coffee. It's coffee.
Oh, yes, but my coffee has to have Bailey's in it.
Oh. No, well, thank you. Good talking to you, my lady.
We've been speaking with Jeff Dalziel, and I'm Linda Heldman for Canadian Beats.